Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. So let's jump right into this. Today, we're looking at something genuinely fascinating. We're going to explore the language of Canadian public policy, but not, just by reading dry definitions out of a textbook. Actually, we're looking at a real session of a learner trying to master these exact terms. And honestly, it reveals this brilliant truth. Truly grasping civic language isn't just about memorizing what the words mean. It's fundamentally about how these complex, kind of intimidating words actually sound when you say them out loud. It's about training your actual voice to participate in the conversation.
Try saying this one 3 times fast. Bureaucratic inefficiency, right? In this session we're analyzing, we see a learner repeatedly drilling this exact phonetic tongue twister with an AI pronunciation coach. And it's just a perfect example of how policy concepts, like in this case, the notoriously slow, complicated processes of government, can literally be a mouthful. Getting the sound of these words right, that's what gives people the confidence to actually use them in real public discourse. Okay, so part 1. Foundations of diverse societies. What's really wild is how easily these critical terms can just get totally mixed up in real-time conversation. Take this one moment, for example. The learner accidentally asks the AI about a social convention, which the AI, doing its job, accurately defines as the unwritten rules of a society. But the learner quickly stops and corrects the AI, realizing, oops, they actually meant social comprehension, like understanding one another in a diverse society. It's a slightly funny little moment, but it hits the nail on the head, showing how just one wrong syllable can change the entire civic concept.
And hey, that brings us to one of the absolute biggest words in Canadian policy, multiculturalism. Yeah, it's a long one, but the concept is totally essential. It describes a society where a bunch of different cultures coexist. But the really crucial point here is that it's about actively valuing and respecting those differences, rather than just expecting everyone to assimilate into one single culture. You see this happening in the real world all the time, through incredibly diverse ethnic neighborhoods, a massive variety of foods, and government policies that directly support that diversity. But you might be wondering, how do you actually keep a multicultural society from just drifting apart? Well, that's exactly where this next term comes in, social cohesion. The ultimate goal here is unity and solidarity. It describes how people from completely different backgrounds manage to stay connected, build trust, and basically work together for the common good. It's this constant, ongoing effort of finding the perfect balance between diversity on one hand and unity on the other.
Moving right along to part 2, the numbers and needs.
Now really notice the pronunciation of this word. Statistics. The stress hits right there on that second syllable. Statistics are how we actually measure demographic shifts. And those are the major structural changes happening in a population. Things like shifting age groups, fluctuating birth rates, or changing migration patterns. Basically, you absolutely cannot plan a society without getting the statistics right. And because of those shifting populations, they desperately need public infrastructure. This term refers to the fundamental facilities and services that a society literally runs on. We are talking about the massive physical investments here. The roads, the bridges, the power grids, the water systems, and of course, public transit. But as we all know, building infrastructure is definitely not free. That requires the allocation of resources. This phrase describes the really careful process of deciding exactly how to distribute money, materials, and people to get the best possible results. When governments sit down to plan a budget or map out a major transit project, they are navigating the most efficient allocation of limited resources to meet those massive infrastructure needs.
Okay, part 3, confronting social inequalities.
First up here is marginalization. This is exactly what happens when certain demographics are pushed to the absolute edges of society. It leaves these groups with way less power, makes them feel less important, and throws up some pretty significant social or economic barriers. In practical terms, this usually means they end up with very limited access to crucial everyday necessities, things like housing, jobs, and education.
And that brings us to a really crucial tension. On one hand, we have income disparity, which is that harsh gap between the rich and the poor, where some folks make a ton of money and others make very little. But on the other hand, you have the goal of an egalitarian society. That's a society that actively prioritizes equality, actually trying to remove those inequalities to ensure everyone gets a fair shot and the exact same rights, regardless of their background.
So, one systemic approach to balancing that exact tension is the welfare state. This is a system where the government actually steps in to provide social services. We're talking things like healthcare, unemployment benefits, and pensions, which are all paid for by taxes. The whole stated goal of this system is to promote economic and social well-being for the people who really need it.
Now, right at this point in the learning session we're following, something highly relatable and frankly, kind of hilarious happens. The learner just gets totally tired of the philosophical definitions and completely changes the rules of the game. They literally tell the AI, okay, don't just listen to me and correct my pronunciation. Don't ask me, is there any other option, okay? The learner just takes total control. They just want rapid-fire phonetic coaching. It's such a fantastic reminder of how tactical learning can really be. So, following the learner's new rules, let's lean right into the phonetics. Try this phrase, disadvantaged groups. When discussing demographics that face social or economic barriers, the AI coaches our learner to put a very specific, heavy emphasis directly on that van syllable. Say it with me, disadvantaged.
And hey, if you want to talk about charitable projects, you've got to master this one, philanthropic initiatives. I know, this is a really tough one, but the AI breaks it down brilliantly. You have to hit a heavy stress on throp in the first word, and then a really sharp nit sound in the second word. Philanthropic initiatives. Getting that rhythm right, that is absolutely key to sounding confident. All right, moving right into part 4, taking community action. Maintaining this strict phonetic focus we've got going, if you want to talk about completely destroying or ending systematic poverty, you have to articulate the action clearly. We hear the learner practice this multiple times, and they finally nailed the pronunciation. Eradicate poverty. Notice that incredibly strong rad sound in the first word, followed up by the very distinct pov sound. It really sounds active, doesn't it? Keeping that rapid rhythm going, we have fostering inclusivity. The AI guides our learner to hit the stress right on the first syllable of fostering, and then guides them to hit that specific sigh sound smack in the middle of inclusivity. Next up, when you're out there advocating for fairness, you are promoting equal access and opportunities. The phonetic emphasis here is really what gives the phrase its power, promoting equal access. And honestly, who drives these initiatives? Well, often it's just ordinary community members coming together in a grassroots movement. The emphasis here falls really heavily on the first syllables of both words. It is literally the sound of local civic engagement in action. But, as we've seen throughout this explainer, pronunciation is a pretty tricky business. In another great, slightly funny moment, the AI actually catches a miscommunication. The learner says part-time shift, but the AI correctly deduces that they actually meant a major fundamental change, a paradigm shift. It's just another brilliant example of why these phonetic drills matter so much. So let's bring this all together. What have we actually learned from watching this learner drill their vocabulary? Well, we've seen that mastering these terms, from the high-level concepts of diversity and unity and multiculturalism, all the way to the physical realities of infrastructure and resource allocation, and down to implementing legislation for action and change, it builds a complete working toolkit for civic engagement. By mastering the sounds, you are quite literally finding your voice in the community. Which really leaves us with this final thought. We spend so much time debating policy on paper, right? But real civic engagement requires us to speak up. So is understanding the sound of policy the first true step to actually shaping it? Does confidently speaking words like infrastructure or egalitarianism unlock our ability to fully participate in the political affairs of our communities? I want you to think about that the next time you find yourself stumbling over a complex civic word. Just keep practicing, and thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.